Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be doing some FEM stuff, so buckle up as it's about to get technical. Let's start off with a backstory and how we got to where we are today. So the car this FEM comes from is an F30. It's a cabrio, well, whatever number that is, F30 something, and it's a non-starter. It will plug in and scan through on ISTA, but we have no communication to FEM Body, and also the instrument cluster doesn't show up. This isn't the instrument cluster from it. This is just a spare I've got just so I can see what that FEM is doing when I'm hitting various different buttons. Going through on diagnostics, then we can see no communication to the FEM, and there are various checks mainly for the powers and the grounds, and they're showing okay, but that's something that's kind of expected since the FEM gateway side is working. So the gateway side, it does sort of recognize the key and switch on, but the body side isn't working at all, and it's the same power that goes in to power all of those. You've got this main power wire that comes in here, which would be on a big massive red cable, and then there's an extra power wire, might be in one of these connectors there, which also sort of powers up the FEM. So we knew that side was okay, and at least the module on the whole is getting power, but no explanation of why the FEM body is dead. First thing I did then is I went in on ESIS to see if it turned up at all, and again ESIS gave absolutely no trace, so no store of any data, bootloaders or software levels or coding on the body side. None of that turned up at all, and to be honest, ISTA would have shown you that, as if it was contactable, even just to prove that it did exist, it would show up in blue and it'd say programming abort. So after that, what I did was we went through all the various different bits and pieces, just checking to make sure that all the powers and stuff is okay and there was nothing else sort of going crazy. It was also noted that the radio and the heater control panel weren't powering up, and that probably explains the dashboard, as the dashboard was one of the fancier ones, and the fancier ones, they run on the fiber optics, and that's almost like a satellite of the radio. So the radio part, the head unit, that wasn't switching on. So after running through all those kind of checks and finding sort of nothing of it, I decided then we're just going to throw in another FEM and see what happens. So this was a FEM, a complete spare one, had nothing to do with that car at all. We plugged it in. We had, I think, the hazard lights start flashing, which is kind of like a immobilizer coding, kind of a clue. But going in on ESIS, FEM body was showing up just fine. So that kind of confirmed that there was no wiring on the car that was holding things back. It was certainly to do with the FEM and the internals on that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to try and clone this FEM into a spare. So we have got some spares, they're not exact matches, so we'll have to try that out. This particular one we can see there, just underneath that QR code, FEM LR01 ZB1 Max, and the Max one means it has every chip to run every possible option. So I don't know whether it came with that one out of the factory or whether it's been replaced at some point. When you do get a replacement from BMW, you will tend to get the Max version, which means every chip is already present for any kind of possibility. So we are going to go and work on a clone, and that's what we're going to get it to next. So we need to change our interfaces and grab some more gear. So a quick check on ESIS first off to show you what this one is like. So we hit connect, we make sure connection via VIN comes up there with an IP address and the VIN. Make sure it is on connection via VIN that you want. We go for connect. Also, yeah, make sure it's on the right chassis type. This one is F020, which is the one for F30s. So this is connecting, I hope. It seems very slow. Yep, we are there. Read vehicle order. This will contact the FEM and it gets hold of it. We can activate RFA, load it all in, and our options. And then we can read out here bits and pieces. So read VCM, that is the configuration of what should be in the car. So if we click that, it's going to give us a list of what it's expecting. What we want to do is read ECU, and that will just give a report of what stuff is present. And there we go. We can see the FEM gateway turns up, but no FEM body. So that's our issue. And let me just show you now what we'll do is I'll grab another FEM, just one of the spares that we're going to do, and I'll show you what it's like on that. So this is our spare in. Now he won't fully turn on or anything like that because we don't have the correct key for it. But we can see there, remote control missing. In other words, it can't detect the key. And then it pops up saying, according to the coil, this isn't the key for the car. Unidentified key means this is the wrong one. This here, this one of the key readers, same type that you'd have built into the steering column. So if you hold it here, it'll be picking up the key. But in ESIS, we have a connection. Again, that is a 1 series, so we can carry on there as F20. We have our IP address and our VIN number. We go for a connect again. Connection established. Read our vehicle order, which should be done. Activate DFA, and our vehicle profile should then fill up with the new options out of this spare one. We go read ECU again, and there. So now we have FEM body and FEM gateway. That's how these things should be turning up just by themselves. The gateway has no coding in it, so you can see there's no, this is the CAFD, that's the coding file. There's one in the FEM body on address 10. The FEM gateway doesn't have a coding file, but it has our various bits and pieces: BTLD, bootloader, hardware numbers, hardware electrical, software flash. But this is the bit that is missing out of our bad FEM. So for some reason, the FEM body is completely dead. So let's get it open and let's start having a look at the cloning operation. Here's our original, and now we've got to fight our way in. First views in at the back, and nothing stands out. I don't see anything burnt, don't see anything damaged or missing. It's a bit tricky when you do have all this conformal coating on there, because quite often what I would be doing is looking at the back of chips and see if you could spot any molten plastic, and those ones there in the middle, that looks like it's molten, but that is just the varnish that sort of ran down and stuck onto where they were. So that all looks fairly normal, nothing standing out there. We know obviously half of this is dead somehow, so we're hopeful we might spot something. To get into the other side then, we're going to need to pull out these fuses. Well, nothing to write home about on this side of the board. So we are now at the top edge, and those two squares, that one and that one there, they are sort of the processors of this, and next to them then we have an EEPROM there and there. This is an EEPROM that we'll need to do some work on. Down at the far end we can see a whole bunch of relays in there as well for controlling stuff, and that's where all our fuses would have sat as well. You can even see there's a couple of pads there where a relay could have gone, but this is the max board, so it is kind of prepared for absolutely everything. Maybe it's one of the lower spec ones have a relay in there rather than this one does it somehow differently electronically. So we are going to go through our steps now with the VVDI BIM tool, and we're going to see what happens. Now the first one I know is you're meant to read and back up the coding, but since there's no coding in the gateway, it must have been the FEM body coding, it was backing up. So we obviously we won't be able to do that step. So let's see what we can get out of it. Well, we've had absolutely no joy at all with the VVDI. So the VVDI wants to connect to FEM Body, but we're only getting connection through to the gateway. So it's not coming up with, and well, first off, it wants to get through and read key data and save some of that stuff and identify bits and pieces. But that would have been out of the FEM Body and no response from that. So we're kind of stuck. It can at least pick up that it's meant to be an F20 type car. So this one isn't an F20, but it's in the F20 family. So I do see it turning up with F20 when it connects into some stuff, which is into the gateway, but it's not reading out much more than that. I have then rechecked with ESIS, and ESIS was able then to go through and still give me the vehicle order. So I know this thing is still alive in there, but it's not able to get out. Had a look then. Next thing was tool 32, and again we can get into the gateway. Let me just try a refresh because I reckon this won't work. Let's see what happens when it refreshes. Yeah, I hit the ignition button a few times, redo him, and there we have it. So apparently we're in a power saving mode. So let me see if I can shut that off. Okay, so there it is. It reckons it is in transport mode at the moment. I'll try and get it out of that. So we have a job in here, energy spark mode. And then when we go into our job info, which is it this table? Let's have a look. Try this table. This one here. There we go. So there are our different modes. So that's normal mode. That is ready mode. I believe that's ready mode. I'll have to check my German. 2 is transport mode and 3 is flash mode. So let's go for normal mode. So to do that then, arguments, we want to give it our mode. So I'm going to say 0x00 and then run once. And all right, no response again because he's gone to sleep. Couple of dabs on that ignition to wake him up, run the job, and it reckons it's probably okay. Let's have a check again. Status. Okay, and there we go. Energy saving mode not active. So that's out of the energy saving mode, but it doesn't really give us much else. Well, time has run out on this guy, so we can see that it is detecting keys, and at the moment I have this red key in which isn't from this car, and it comes up unidentified remote control key. So it can read these keys and it can tell me that is not the correct key. When we get the blue one in, and it eventually will pick that one up, it will come up then with a message saying, it will say sort of key detected after a while. So I know the brains of the FEM body are alive in there, but they're not able to communicate out into anything else. So that means then we can't get on with the cloning, as we need to communicate with that on the data side to actually pull out the data that we need to save. Everything else is stored inside of the processor. So that's the bit where we get stuck, is our details are inside that processor and we can't get into that processor, so we can't get our information out. Any minute now this should pop up and say key detected, hopefully. Well, it has done before, trust me on it. So we are going to have to go for plan B on this thing, as it looks like this guy is dead, and what we're going to have to do is we're going to start again from scratch with another FEM, hopefully with some keys, and we're going to need to transfer over the vehicle order, which we have managed to save, as the vehicle order was in the gateway and I have got a copy of that. I will need to put the VIN number in, and I've got a copy of the VIN number. That side was in the gateway, and I will also need to copy into it the immobilizer code. So to get the immobilizer code, I'm going to need to read that out of the engine ECU. So there is our DDE, and he is hooked up through to the flex. So what I'm going to do is a full backup on that, and then I'm going to extract the ISN. So I have all the details I need: the VIN number, the immobilizer code, the coding, and we're going to have to then put all that into a new FEM, one that has keys already with it. So we're just going to change the car details, keep the keys that come with the new one as the keys that we have with the old one. Again, that data is encrypted inside the FEM, and if we can't get inside it, we can't unencrypt it, then we're not able to reuse those keys, unless in fact there is some clever ways where you can sort of unprogram and reset those keys, but that's a different kind of a job. And the EEPROM is read, and we have our ISN, so that's in there. That's 8588DB, and you'll see him repeated 3 times. There he is the second time, 8588DB, and then again down the bottom. So the ISN, it's 16 bytes long, and you'll always see it's kind of repeated 3 times in these ECUs. So that's kind of what you're looking for, is a string that matches, and I think the spacing is always pretty much the same between them. But we have that details now, so what we're going to need is another replacement FEM with some keys. Well, we are back on track now with another FEM, and this is the kind of stuff that we should have been seeing, which is going in and grabbing all these details here out of it. With our other one, we weren't able to get in, and these details here, the key details, this is all out of the FEM body side, and you can tell that because there's a CAFD, which is a coding file, which isn't in the gateway. So we're going to have to go through quite a few steps now to work on the cloning. Well, I suppose it's not going to be cloning, it's going to be transfer over of the VIN number, the immobilizer code. We're going to have to blank the mileage, and also the vehicle options as well. I have read and backed up the FA out of this new donor, and I do see that BIMtool understands the FA I had saved from the other one. So the other one, we had an FA saved out the gateway, stored it, this was ESYS, and it stored it as an XML file, and the BIMtool does load in that XML. So it looks like they're not using their own crazy branded stuff. They will work with regular XMLs, all of your options straight out the BMW system. So that's wrote into there, although that's not too important. That's a step that could have been done later. So now we need to go on with the rest of the details of unlocking this FEM and changing the data. So these are our steps now for unlocking the FEM. So we have backup coding. I've already read and backed up the coding. That coding is going to get changed anyway, so that's not too much of an issue. And then the next thing we need to do is get into this EEPROM, and that's going to be this little one here next to that processor. So we will open him up and get him off first. Our FEM EEPROM is out. He's sitting just there. We're going to stick him now on the VVDI prog. We're going to read our data and set up our service mode program. That's our little EEPROM now in the socket, 95128. And we have read him with the VVDI prog, and we can also do verify and make sure one of these things, do plenty of verifies, make sure you got everything correct. And as I look through, I can see we've got valid data in there. I don't recognize a lot of that stuff, but I see a part number in there, so that looks to have read everything fine. So now we switch back over to the BIMtool, and we're going to prepare the service mode EEPROM. Then we want to load the file. There it is, FEM original EEPROM. And there it is, new. Save him. And that is our service dump EEPROM. So now we need to write that back and stick that back into the FEM. So step 3 is ready to go now. So we have our EEPROM loaded up and in there, and now we're going to do our programming. Coding not saved. Yes, we can carry on about that. Fail to initialize device. Right, that is going to be our little gadget, so it looks like we need to reconnect that. Right, we should be back on track again. Let's try now. So yeah, we don't need to worry about the coding, as I've already done that separately, and now we're going into the programming. So I'm guessing what this is doing is that EEPROM file has some kind of, maybe like a known password in there or something like that, and it allows it to go and program a sort of a modified firmware onto the FEM. So it's going to program on something modified. Then once that's done, it's going to go and say, take that EEPROM off and put it back to how you found it. So that stage will be coming up in a short while. That is that done. So now EEPROM off, put him back to how we found him, and then move on. EEPROM is now back to original as we found it. So now solder him back in, and this thing then should now be unlocked. It's all back together now, and we're into this final stage. I'm going to see if this is going to work. I've got a feeling it might not. Yep, failed to initialize. Please reconnect to device. Yeah, but I think if we go back into here, it will reconnect. So we have done that. We've opened the shell. We've put the original file back. We've connected OBD, and that's it. So there we go. FEM BDC programming success. Please restore coding. So that's our final stage, and our coding then should be this one. Hit OK. Writing coding completed. Do you want to verify? Oh, why the hell not? Success. You can now make a main dealer key from the main window. So this is where it will get interesting, as we can read our FEM BDC data, and this gives us our bits and pieces. So the VIN we're going to change, the ISN we're going to change, which we're going to see down here, and we're also going to blank the mileage as well. So we've got a few bits to alter now to suit the other car, and then load it all up. So I've got our new file with our new ISN. That's going to be kind of like the scrambled version of it, and our new VIN. So we're going to write that in. We'll lose the coding. Do you finish back up the coding? Yes, we have done. Please write coding to unit. So we have that loaded in. We want to do, well, I suppose after doing that program and the coding went, so we'll need to go and do the coding again. And that is one of these. The VIN doesn't match. We'll use VIN from continue. We'll use VIN from unit. Oh, fair enough. Do you want to verify the coding? Yeah, go on. Okay, didn't write the coding. Well, since it recognised the VIN was different between the saved coding and what is in the FEM at the moment, we can get through and we can just calculate the coding. There it is, calculate CFD with SWFL. So that calculates some coding. It is just sort of the generic kind of stuff. I will probably end up doing it with ESYS just to be 100% sure. But that is written in now, so he is all ready to go. In fact, one final thing now we're going to have to look at is doing the mileage. Well, if I believe that, in fact, it says that the mileage is 0. I was just wondering why I couldn't see. Oh, there we go. We do have a reset kilometre button. Only used to repair kilometre exchange new dashboard. You cannot use the function for other purpose. Take all risks for illegal purposes. It'll reset it in there. You need to manually change it in the dashboard. We don't really need to worry about that because the dashboard will have the original mileage in there. So yeah, right. So what it does, it just resets it to 0. So on these kind of things, once the VIN number matches between the dash and the FEM, they'll both sync up to whatever's got the highest mileage. So it looks like it does automatically reset the kilometers on these. So not really a clone has gone through and we have it all done. So there it is. It's not B37 D15 anymore out of an F20. We can see there we have our VIN number from an F30 type, F033 FEM. We have our VIN number in, we have our ISN in there, we have our mileage reset to 0, we have our options wrote in, we have the coding done, even though I might want to go and redo the coding on ESIS. But this should be enough to start the car up. I'm a little bit unsure of whether it's going to work everything, because I believe this FEM might have been missing some options compared to his original one, which was a max unit. So I have a feeling that some stuff might not work, but we're going to have to try that out on the car next. We have travelled through time and space and we are now sitting in our F33. But we aren't getting very far. So one of the things I thought about was going to be the steering lock. So we do have that kind of stuff. The key is working. But our issue is the steering lock. So there we have electronic steering lock, ELV signaling authentication fault. So that was something I was kind of expecting, because I know on the manual cars, the ELV is linked in to your immobilizer. On the automatics, the gearbox is. On the manuals, it's ELV. Now, I didn't know whether it would just be tied into the VIN number and having a matching VIN would be good enough. But unfortunately, no, it is linked into some other kind of code that was in the other FEM. Now, we do at least have FEM Body showing up, and we're doing a lot better in terms of fault codes. So we are getting awake, but we do have things like this code here, outside door handle electrics. So this car had comfort access. This FEM doesn't have comfort access. So there's going to need to have a different FEM in this with more options. So I'm guessing by Xenons. I don't see anything wrong with the Xenons at the moment, but I'm sure when I get things sort of working a little bit better, I'm sure the Xenons would pop up. But we're certainly going to be looking for a FEM with Xenons and comfort access as well. And it also looks like I'll need to take the steering lock and reset the steering lock as well. So the current state of play then is the garage are going to sort out another FEM with all our matching options. One that has the comfort access and buy Xenon, whatever else. All the kind of bits and pieces that were matching the original. As if I was going to go and get that started, I'd need to reset the ELV, and that's an ELV there in front of me. And then when the FEM would be changed again, it would need that ELV reset again to suit the new FEM. So not really much point in doing that. They're also going to have a key guy make them up a couple of keys. So the original car came with 2 keys. The test FEM we got only as the 1 key. And from what I gather, I believe they're going to take it from there, from the stuff that I've already done. But they have said that the customer will pay me when they pick the car up, which means I'm probably not going to hold my breath for a payment out of that. But anyway, let's show you how you would reset the ELV on one of these F series. So there is our ELV in front of us, and it's this little EEPROM here, I believe. This one should be a 95040, and that is the EEPROM that holds all the data in. And what you can do is you can virginize those, so then when it's on the car, it'll sort of pair itself up with a new FEM. And this is the data that you would see then inside one of those EEPROMs. So this is the EEPROM out of the ELV, and I'll just show you the bits and pieces. This bit down here, there's some numbers in there which might be part numbers or date code. Don't need to worry about that. It's only these other sections you see here in red. So you'll zero these, you'll see repeating numbers in these slots here, zeros in here, FFs in there, FF, all of this section, and then down here there's one bit there to pay attention to. You've got to stick an 80 in there, 0 0, that's an 80. And then down here you'll find some more numbers in that bit, stick them all to FF, and further down you might find some other numbers in there, stick that all to FF. So you just match up your file with that and pretty much take out all data. Again, don't need to worry about that, but pretty much take out all data, so it's all either zeros or FFs, apart from that single 80 you see sitting there. So that's a wrap for our little FEM adventure. I'll see you on the next one.